Welcome to the first event of the summer season of the 7th annual Tony Woiak History Festival, sponsored by the Washburn Historical Association and the Washburn Area Historical Society. The series is funded primarily by a grant from the Apostle Islands Historic Preservation Conservancy. We are delighted to have our musicians this evening, Russ Darwin and our son Dan, here. They are sponsored by Don Ekstrom and Karlyn's Gallery. Thank you, boys. Russ Darwin knows about 200 songs and all the words to every one. We are excited to have Karlyn here this evening, and it says in the print that I think you can do a better job of the introduction than I can. So, I think that the reason most of you are here is because you know Karlyn already, and you know that she doesn't relax a lot. She keeps pretty busy, starting at about 5:30 in the morning, most mornings, when she doesn't meditate. She writes books, she plans lessons for her classes, she plans trips, both domestic and foreign, and I don't know what else she does because I'm sleeping.
She forms a honey-do list for you.
Right. So I can only read the things that are amusing to me, so the list is sometimes helpful. Let's see, no retail business survives for 50 years without a great deal of attention and enthusiasm and whatever, the grace of God perhaps. But many of you have perhaps tried the retail business. You know it's a tough game. So we're very fortunate for our family business to have lasted this long, but it has not lasted by accident, I can tell you, because it's mainly because of Karlyn's enthusiasm and her business sense and attention to detail and staffing and a whole bunch of things, but it's worked out. And my job is to stay out of the cotton picking way and keep the building from slumping into the earth or tilting worse than it already does. So here, I'd like to, before I introduce Karlyn, I want to add this little injection. The building was originally belonged to my great uncle Karl Holman, was Anton Holman's brother, my grandfather's brother, and it was a men's clothing store. And I remember going there in the company of my grandfather in about 1940, when I wasn't very old. And I remember walking into the store and had a potbelly stove in the back, and there was Karl and some of his aged associates who gathered there commonly for no good purpose, but just because there was a fire in the stove probably. So that was my introduction to the old red front store. So I did this lyric tonight as an introduction. In great Uncle Karl's clothing store, there's a serious tilt to the floor. When customers are leaving, they're often seen weeping. We're lucky when they come back for more. Enough of that, and I'd like at this time to introduce Karlyn.
I'm so lucky to have this microphone. Is this working? All right. And I'm delighted to be here and share with you some of my stories over the 50 years. And I just realized as I'm looking at the slide, that was an unfortunate slide to pick for just to stay up there. Can you see all the paint peeling on my sign? In fact, the other day I was crossing the street to get to my car, and a lady stopped and rolled the window down. I said, "Oh, hi." She said, "I just thought I'd tell you your sign needs to be repainted." And actually the window boxes do too. Thank you. I said, I'll take that under consideration. So as you know, I've been in 50 years. Now I got to figure out, I think I got it. Here we go. And we are actually open all year round. And this has been one of the things I've been just feel great about it, because winter and summer, we've been open for basically close to 50 years. And that's nice for the people that work there, because they can be assured of having a job. So I feel really good about that. And this is an incredible picture coming up here. This was done by Petra Holter. And Petra's here tonight, how nice. And I'm not sure what year you did this, but it was probably in the 70s. And what you see here is a typical day at Karlyn's gallery. And that's me over on the far right. And then that's Leslie up there with the blonde hair by the window. And then that's Diana Tesori Randolph. She was my first manager. And then that's her sister Andy at the other wheel. That's Dave Ricard in the foreground. And frequently his wife Jody would come down and she would help. And that's Colleen Gustafson and Johnny Mayers in the back. And then in the front row there, that's one of our foster daughters, Barbara Kosneski, and her little daughter, Nikki. And Nikki was just, an infant when Barbara started working with me. In fact, here they are together. Little Nikki was potty trained at the pot shop. She forgot to put the potty chair in that picture. That was pretty fun. And so what I've done here is I've pretty much organized this little show by answering 8 questions. And the first one is, what motivated me to start a business? And one of the things that motivated me was I love to sell things. And it started when I was a little girl. My dad picked night crawlers. I held a can. I wasn't like picking the night crawlers. But for something like 4 or 5 years, just as a young kid, I actually sold night crawlers. We were the go-to place for night crawlers. It did pretty well. One time I got in trouble with my dad, though. The price, it was like 10 cents, then 15 cents, and it got up to 20 cents a dozen. And when these guys would come in to buy, they'd give me a quarter, and I'd say, "Do you want your nickel back?" And my dad heard me one day, and he would, "You want your nickel back?" I got punished. I said, "Dad, they always say I can just keep it." He said, "You give them their nickel." And then for a long time, before we bought the business, Gary and I hauled my pots around and my paintings around and went to art fairs. And that really is a lot of work. So we were driving down the street one day, and Gary said, my great Uncle Carl's store there, I bet that would be a nice place to have a little business. Wouldn't have to be hauling around to art fairs all the time. He said, "I think we should go talk to him," which at that point Carl was gone and his wife was living in the back. There was a nice little apartment back there. So we stopped to see her, and she said, "We were just thinking of putting this up for sale." And we said, "Well, how much?" And she said, "Well, $2,000. I went, "Oh my gosh, $2,000. And see, at that time, we had 3 little kids under 3. I think you'll recognize. And I was a stay-at-home mom. Gary was a school teacher in Bayfield, and $2,000 was out of the question. But you know what? We went down to the bank, and they said, "No problem. We'll give you a loan. It'll be for 7 years, and $51 a month." Well, then, wouldn't you know this? Some of you will remember there was a World War II vet. You'd see him walking around town. I'm trying to remember his name. I bet somebody here will remember.
Funny.
No, it wasn't funny. But anyway, he needed a place to stay, so we rented him the apartment in the back for $45 a month. So now it only costs me me $6 a month because oh, that was pretty funny. So now I'm just going to show you a little series of pictures that kind of show what it's like. This was the inside, and it's a pretty funky little place. And you had to bend over if you wanted to buy something. So most of the pots and things were just on bricks, on doors, on the floor. The display left a lot to be desired. That's not one of my strong areas. And it was funny, we had, we had a lot of light bulbs. I don't know if you noticed them in Petra's wonderful drawing, but she did stamping, and there were like light bulbs all over. Well, you can see one in here. See the bare light bulb? This is Gary pinning a corsage on my Nehru suit. It was brown with gold buttons. I thought, wow, this is so cool. And then we had a lot of fun making pots here. You saw how big the crew is. We absolutely loved it. This was my little corner. And of course the pottery in the front. And this is cute. This is Brianna. As a young girl, just out there, she'd come down and visit. Loved it. And the thing that was kind of fun is I had these potters. I mean, they were young. I had this hunk of burning love here. Denny LaValle. We had so many people, girls, young ladies coming in. They weren't there to buy pots. I knew what was going on. And then we had these two gals. You'll recognize. Now there's trouble. And we had a lot of guys coming through too, so it was kind of a steady stream of young folks. But in between we worked hard. We were always working. A lot of stuff going on. And then what happened is, and Billy Vino was a visitor. Yeah, and he did so much to help too. We'd come in and we'd say, oh Bill, we got a problem back here. Because Gary was busy, he was out of town teaching, so Bill was just wonderful. Okay, it's the next slide. On this slide, you'll see, I was a little younger then, my hair was dark. Well, being a stay-at-home mom, what I did is I basically painted a lot of pictures, mostly acrylics, large abstracts, and pictures like this. And I was fortunate enough to get a show up in Duluth at Gallery 5, which is at that time was a really nice downtown on the Main Street gallery. And I went up to hang the show, and Gino Palucci's son came in. Now, some of you probably have heard of Gino Palucci. He started over 70 businesses. He had Chung King and those pizza rolls. Anyway, his son came in. He liked the work, and he bought the entire show. I had 43 paintings, and he bought all the paintings. And so it was really cool when I went to the opening. I mean, people would say, oh, I think I'll take that painting. I'd go, oh, that's great. Yes. I already had sold it. And so when I got the check for that, it really was a nice deal because at that point it gave us money to put in a new furnace and to do some of the rewiring. So a lot of the repairs that were necessary were possible by that wonderful sale. And I just had to share this. This is a picture of Bob Eccles and a lot of his apprentices. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that he was my mentor, and he's really the reason that I had a lot of experience in pottery and was able to take on an operation like having over 30 potters work at my studio over a period of, it was 25 years that we did pots down there. And I was Bob's first apprentice in 1958 and 59. Amazing. And I would show up, he started the shop over in Ashland, and I would show up in a dress, and I got paid $1 an hour, which was up from, I was making 40 cents an hour at the bakery. So, wow, that was a pretty big increase. And I'd show up in a dress. I remember I had a real pretty pink dress that I paid $8 for at the over in Ashland. at one of those stores. I don't remember the name of the store. Anyway, I showed up in my dress and realized that was not a good idea. Within about a week. And I had a little motor scooter to get back and forth. And to just show up, and I helped them build the kilns and haul bricks, and it was just a fabulous experience. So thank you, Bob. You know, he really helped me get started. And the good news is, when you have a number of art galleries and artists like we have here, that makes us a destination. Bob and I never thought of each other as competitors. We were there to get people to come here. We worked together. We encouraged other artists to open galleries or whatever, studios, whatever they wanted to do, because the more people we get here, the more people that are going to come. You become a destination. So now what's next here? This is just a whole series of pictures. I worked for Bob in 58 and 59. Then in between, you know, I finished college, got married, had 3 kids, and 10 years later, opened this shop. And these are some of the people that work together. Here you can see that's, actually that's pretty much the same crew that you saw earlier. So here we go. This now has Dave Ricard in it, and pretty much the same crew again. And this time we had the pot down on the ground, and then we put it up on the building, and then it got kind of dangerous, so we took it back down again. So that pot, it only weighs over 1,000 pounds. It's been moved around quite a few times. And another thing I have to do, I have to say thank you to Dave Ricard. If he hadn't come along and been part of our crew, I could never have done all the things. He built basically all the kilns, designed them, and just, he was an idea a day. Sometimes I'd say, that's enough. No, wait, just wait. He had so many ideas. Thank you, Dave. And here's another interesting thing. Now, 10 years after I bought the building, in 78, Renee joined the crew. There's Renee. Yeah. So there's Dave at the bottom with his harem. and it was really cool. Having Renee, she would make jewelry and make, you know, piggy banks and everything. And then we decided to do some remodeling. We just didn't have enough space. We got the World War II vet out there. And we wanted that apartment so we could expand. And it was just great. You can see Andy Oakey there. He helped with some of the remodeling. Here's the back. That's now gallery space, completely gutted. And then I did a little bit of help, but you know who did most of the work. I might have carried a few boards. And I did help, honest to God, I did help build the chimney on our kiln. And then we had expanded a 5-foot thing, expansion on the side of the building where we mostly put our lamps. People would come in and say, is this a lamp shop? I go, no, we've got everything here. And then we did an expansion towards the back so that I would have a bigger space to work in. I love that. And then Gary got the idea to put a second floor on the building. Now, a second floor, that's an amazing thing. And I was asking him tonight, I said, how come you build that second floor in the winter instead of the summer? Well, he said, because I could cut holes in the roof. And if it rained, it would run in, but when it snows, it doesn't run in. So he literally cut holes in where all the studs are, put up the, what do you call those, dear? Whatever. Stud wall. And then he built these
Roof trusses.
Roof trusses, thank you. And then after he got the roof on, he tore out the building part underneath, the existing roof, and there was our second floor. And it was pretty amazing feat, and he did this in the winter time, and it was so this is a picture of Dick Olson helping us, and this is in, believe it or not, that can't be. And I'm not sure if this is, I needed a picture that I could illustrate putting on the second floor. Anyway, Dick did help at some point. And the interesting thing is, it was February, and we had an incredible thaw. And so Gary said he was up on the roof in February in a t-shirt, and he could look out to the West End Park, and he could see the snowmobile races going on. I thought that was great. So another question I want to address is, how did I market my business? You know, this is a big deal when you start a business. How do you market it? Well, this is one of the best deals that we had at the time, and that was to advertise in the paper. And one of these little things was $50. That was a lot of money. And you don't know if anybody reads those, you know, that's advertising in a newspaper. They read the newspaper, they don't always read the ads. So I called Bob Eccles one day and I said, hey Bob, why don't we start saying little things about each other to create interest in our ad? I bet you people would want, you know, we'll get more people to watch it. And he said, so he always said, for those who know quality, gift appeal from the potter's wheel. Open all year. So I said, for those who don't know quality, forget appeal, get a good deal. Open most of the time. Well, this is historic because it never went any further than this. I got a call from Bob and he said, I don't think I like that idea. So that's how far that went. That was fun. And then, of course, you'd put together brochures, those twofold, whatever you call it. And in black and white was all I could afford, so I had a little brochure. And then, actually, my best advertising was writing on the window. And so this is our 25th anniversary here. And we just wrote on the window, come on in and help us celebrate our 25th anniversary. And by gosh, people would come in. That was better advertising than just about anything else. And then I actually did this. I painted this billboard myself. And somebody riding by took a picture of it and sent it to me, and I thought, what in the heck am I going to do with a picture like that? And I was kind of glad I had it for this little program. So that's enough of that. Okay. And then this is pretty cute. This is a program that I started years and years ago called Buy a Karlyn Holman Original Painting. And I used to call it Rent to Own. And it was $5 a month. And you could take any painting in the shop and you just came in and paid me $5. And it's been an incredibly successful program. And pretty soon I raised it up to $10 a month. And then pretty soon I said, oh gosh, this is ridiculous. Let's just take their credit card, divide it by 10, and send them a receipt every month for 10 months. No interest, no anything. I've sold thousands of paintings on this program, so I encourage, my artists are here from my class this week in the front row. Oh gosh. So think about that. That is a great way to do it. And I just have one little story about this. Two little stories, actually. One day, I looked up, and there's my mom. She got $5 in her hand. She said, I want to buy a painting. I said, Mom, you can have any painting in this shop. I don't have to take $5 from you. She came in on the first of every month with $5 and bought a painting. And then my first foster son was Tommy Nelson from the island. And at that time, Tommy had a girlfriend, and he decided to buy her 3 months' rent. So he gave me $15. And he went to this birthday party, gave her the painting. I think it was worth about $200. And she liked the painting and bought it. That's kind of a fun story. Okay. But one of the things that I started to do, like I think this might have been a homecoming, was to advertise in a parade. When you think about it, thousands of people are out there. You're getting your name out there any way you can. So I remember riding my bike one time in a homecoming. But I'll tell you the one that really worked for us. And Leslie Apple came up with this idea. She designed these costumes, and she and her husband wore them to a Halloween party. And we decided to wear them to the Apple Festival parade and go as apple cores. And so, in those days, this is like 35 years ago, in those days, the apple growers would pull trailers down, and they would actually throw apples. They had bushels of apples, and they would throw the apples to people in the crowd, or just hand it to them, but that was how they did it. And I thought, I think what we'll do is, so I got 2 big bowls, and I filled one with apples, and I filled the other one with apple cores with fruit fresh. So we encourage people to have an apple and put their core in that fruit fresh. And we collected them for a whole week. And then we had plastic bags and threw the apple cores at people. But that was a bad idea. They threw them back. That was probably one of the dumbest things we did. And then after just the 2 of us, that was the loneliest, longest thing I've ever done. We formed, my husband being a musician, we formed Karlyn's Drum and Apple Corps. Now, I just think that's one of the coolest things yet. And anytime you hear the word corps, like drum and bugle corps, we are talking, precision. Well, wait until you see the apple corps. This is pretty good. And I love that sign. And what we do is we warm up at the Baptist parking lot before the parade. And see this sign? It's the rum and apple. That's a little more like it. And then every year it was the musicians would just show up. Don't you love this? Anybody recognize him? I know you did. And they didn't always have the music down pat. And they were, we sounded really good. They played Dixieland jazz. They'd always play Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree with Anybody Else But Me, or they played When the Saints Come Marching In. And then we would just kind of bounce around, run around, maybe kiss a couple guys on the sideline. And the musicians got older, and we had to put them on a trailer. It was too hard to march. And I was so fortunate. This lady right here, Mary Rice, was my drum majorette for almost 35 years. So she started out, she marched down, you can see us coming up, she led the parade for us, and then she started doing these innovative things. She got a little car, and she rode the car one year. Another year, she got another car and she sat on it. And I don't have the whole sequence, but then she rode on the back of a truck. And I think some of you will remember she mounted a bathtub on top of this beaded truck. And then that truck pulled 4 bathtubs. I sat in a bathtub one year. I decided, okay, I'm not doing that for a while now. And then this is us marching. You can see, sometimes we'll get somebody who'll say, listen, we got to get a little precision going here. So that we'd actually start practicing in the parking lot there. And then when we get out there, we'd kind of line up pretty good. But most of the time, this is what we looked like. When I first opened the shop 50 years ago, we were just a little tourist attraction. We were what you call a brick and mortar store. People just come in, hopefully they liked what they saw and would buy a pot. But now, the brick and mortar part is 20% of my business. Wow. So it's really, really changed. And what's changed it is the internet. So what you see here is just an example yeah, this is a picture off of my webpage. Okay. And the internet completely changed, what I'm doing. And the online store, that's why that picture was up there. We have an online store. And people call, any English-speaking country calls in. We're shipping all over the world now. And the online store is about 10% of my business. And then, Facebook, email, Instagram, all that good stuff. And another question I wanted to address was, what was my biggest challenge? Well, obviously the biggest challenge is to have a family and a business. So having these 3 kids, when they were little, there's swimming lessons, there's birthday parties. It gets pretty busy. It's almost a full-time job. And then I did teach part-time at Northland from 1970 to 1980. And my biggest challenge, besides the family, was they multiplied. Next thing we know, we've got 10 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. So that was definitely a challenge. And the other one is technology. And if it hadn't been for Dave Ricard and a lot of the techie people that I've been fortunate enough to share my studio with, I would never have moved along as quickly as I have. Just learning how to use a computer and keeping it running. And this is so long ago. Do you remember the DOS program? Oh, that was absolutely a nightmare. And one of the lessons I learned, this is now about the lessons I learned. And what I learned is that I love teaching more than anything else. I love and thank my students are here. Oh, when you're a potter, that was my whole world, that potter's wheel, and working and all the things that it takes to make a finished pot. But when I decided that I really wanted to follow my passion for watercolor and that I enjoyed sharing what I learned with other people, it became just a passion to open an art school. So thanks to Mr. Holman, who built me a 2,500 square foot addition, I was able to move along with setting up an art school. So here's an example. If you haven't seen it, just stop in sometime. And we've got a beautiful space back there. And it's been working out really well. We have classes all summer. And then I started writing books. What a passion that turned out to be. I just couldn't stop. I've done 10 books. And 5 of them are instructional on how to paint in watercolor and mixed media. And then some of them are children's picture books. 5 of them are children's picture books. And a bunch of DVDs and all that fun stuff. And the very first children's picture book I did was with this gentleman. Who recognizes him? Mr. Casperson. And we did a book together called Little Brother Moose. And it was quite an experience. He came up and he said, "Karlyn, would you like to illustrate my book?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, tell me what it's about." He said, "Well, it's an environmental story and this moose gets lost in the city." And I thought, well, I'm not a wildlife artist, but I think I can handle it. So we put together what I thought would work as illustrations, and we sent it in together. And we had an agreement that if his text got accepted, but my illustrations didn't, we go with it. Because this was his first book and my first book. So, of course, they wanted the text, they didn't want my illustrations. And that's not unusual. A lot of times, publishers have their own warehouse of illustrators. So, and I just sent in, this is a long time ago, I sent in color copies. And color copies that long ago were really awful. It didn't look anything like the original. So Jim, bless his heart, he called the publisher after he had gone through the editing process and said, I think you ought to really reconsider this artist. How about if she sends in her original work? So I did. And I got a call from the publisher. He said, "You might want to sit down." So I was very lucky that I did get to illustrate his book. And they just stopped publishing it all these many years. I should have checked how long ago. It's sold over 50,000 copies. And I have a few with me tonight. In fact, I have quite a few books with me tonight. I think that's funny. And they're at 50% off in honor of my 50th anniversary. And the publisher that did this book, Little Brother Moose, called me and said, we'd like you to do another book. So this was an intergenerational book about this grandpa. This is Grandpa Carlson. He posed for me. And that's Brianna. And so I took a number of, I had to have something to work from. And it needed to have a grandpa and a granddaughter. Well, I had all of them. So this is my mom and Brianna out in the garden working. And it was a great experience. And then this is when the books arrived. You'll recognize this gentleman. Not only did I write all these books, we published them ourselves. So this is the first book I did with John Teeter. He was the publisher. That is 16,000 books sitting in front of our home. They all had to be moved into, not all of them, a lot of them were moved into a truck and shipped off. So I usually pre-sold about 8,000 books before we went to print. But that still leaves 8,000 books that have to be stored somewhere. And after 5 books, you know how many books I have? Gary said, don't write any more books. So I built you 2 garages and that's it. Well then, Warren Nelson had this Ditch of Witches story that he used to tell his kids years and years ago. And he talked me into illustrating it. And it was kind of fun. I should have put some more pictures up, but I used Betty and my sister and Mary Rice, and they were the witches. And Patsy. There were 4 witches, and that was who the witches were. We have some of those books with us tonight, too. And then right now, I do a lot of DVDs, and I'm on YouTube a lot. I'm kind of a YouTube queen. And I couldn't believe this, but I just got awarded. I'm one of the top 75 watercolor painting YouTube channels. It's pretty fun. I got this letter in the mail, and it had this virtual medal. And I thought, I'm in the top 75. I wonder where I am. So I remember scrolling through, and oh no, 10? No, not 20? No, 30? 40? I'm 52. I've evidently, there's something like more than 4,000 people who follow me, and like 235,000 times people have watched me on YouTube. I think that's hilarious. And then another thing that's been really successful for me is an online class. And Jonas, who's with me tonight, is my production manager. And he rents the space upstairs in my gallery, so I don't know how I can be so lucky. I can just be down there getting ready to film, and when I'm ready, I can holler up the stairs, hey Jonas, is this a good time? And he can come down and film. And we just completed a whole year of online classes called Keeping Up with Karlyn. And it's amazing. I've sold over 400 memberships, and people all over the world, I mean all over the world, have bought this. And I just wanted to tell you that if you're interested, it's still available. You can watch it anywhere, anytime, on any device. It's $400, but for you, $50 off. And if you can see me here in my studio now, we've got it all set up. Lots of the kids. This is Jonas over here, and lots of the cameras. Those are all on me. Under this setup, we got fancy lights and everything. We even bought a teleprompter, but we've never used it. I think that's kind of funny too. And on this Keeping Up with Karlyn, you get you get a little gift bag. We mostly sell it off the internet. And I've been so fortunate now that that's about 30% of my business is the online class. And then I like to do international travel. In case anybody's interested, I have 6 international trips next year. 2 cruises, and they're really good deals. Oh my gosh, really, really good. And then Renee and I are going to do a foodie trip in April to Spain. Yeah. And then I have southern Italy, and I'm going back to Spain with artists, and France. So, and 2 of them are already filled, so you better hurry up. And here you can see, this is a cruise boat I taught on last year, 21 days, and it was just fabulous. And I'm real lucky, my husband likes cruises. The first time I earned him a chance to join me on a cruise, I had to sell 20 places, and then my husband could go free. And so I said, Gary, I earned you a cruise, a free cruise. And he said, oh no. He said, all you do is eat on a cruise. I said, I don't want to gain any weight. I said, you know what, that's okay. I'll take my mom. She loves cruises. And he said, well, maybe I'd like to go. And here you can see this. I started doing these international trips in 1990. That's pretty amazing, 1990. So this is me somewhere in Italy doing a demonstration. Those are the days when I could be in that position. I don't do that anymore. I sit on a chair now. And then this is South Africa. We just went there, in fact, just a few months ago, and it was a fabulous experience. It's my 4th time to South Africa. And when we got back from South Africa, Gary was complaining about how his ass hurt because it's 2 days on the plane. And he was going on and on when people would say, well, how was the trip? He'd say, oh, that's those 2 days on the plane, it's a killer. Never said anything about the safari, the food, the weather, nothing. I was waiting. Oh, surely he's going to say something else. He didn't. I went and crossed him off of the next trip to Italy and the next trip to France. And he was very lucky. Some people canceled at the last minute, he got to go. But I just completed a trip to Ireland. It was my 90th international trip that I led. So I think that's pretty hard to believe. I can't believe it myself. And this is way back in the early 90s. They were so desperate for shows out at Chautauqua. Howard Sievertson and I actually did a show at Chautauqua. And I told them all my travels. So I've been on the same stage as Ed Monroe, and I could go on and on. We all know all the wonderful people there. And my mom was very blessed, and me especially, to join me on 8 international trips. She was quite the little traveler. Just unbelievable. And she got to go because I have a rich brother, and he paid for it. So she always felt, oh, poor Ken. She'd say, oh, you shouldn't have Ken pay for those trips. I said, well, it's okay, he wants to. He's delighted. And so we were in Austria this time, and we were sitting there looking at this mountain full of trees, and she started drawing after about 4 trips. She started joining in, doing some of the sketching and stuff, and she had drawn about 35 little stick trees, and she said to me, this is boring. I don't like this. I said, Mom, why don't you just go find something that you really enjoy? I'll catch up with you later. So she was gone quite a while, and I'm going, what? Where is she? And I found her. She had found a little chapel, and she drew Jesus hanging on the cross. I couldn't believe it, and it was good. So I framed it up and sent it to my brother as a thank you gift. And of course he loved getting it because he's very devout, and he sent back a little note to Mom and said how much he liked it. And then he said, but it looks like Jesus gained weight. I called him out. I said, is that the best you can do? That was pretty funny. Oh, okay, so we're almost done. Now, the key to my success, this was a question I was supposed to answer, and that one is easy. This guy. I couldn't have done it without him. I found this picture. I remember when he used to get his hair permed. And look at all the hair up there. And he's so cute. I had it permanent too, of course. And this is what he looked like after a 21-day cruise. Decided to And then this is what he looks like today. Yeah. So the last thing I'm going to address is what's the best part about being self-employed? And that's really pretty easy. First of all, of course, you can manage your own timeline. But one of the best things is that you can surround yourself with people you like. And I am so blessed. I have the best crew. And Jonathan, my front desk person. And this is Jonas, my production manager. And here's my frame shop, Bradley and Kristen. And just a huge, just wonderful people that have surrounded me. And Wylan Lorber does a lot of classes. She's a wonderful teacher, and she's teaching in my studio all the time, doing a fabulous job. And you can see people come in, bring their kids. We have probably taco parties, a couple times a month. And all we say is, hey, taco party on Tuesday, and everybody brings the same thing. We don't even have to say, what are you going to bring? We all bring the same thing. We just show up and have a party. It's pretty fun. And we like to party together. We have this gentleman, Ivan. He's that good-looking guy right there on the front. And he went off to college, so we went out on a little party cruise boat. It was really fun. We did an evening cruise up to the islands. And this is my last slide, and it's my staff. You frequently see them sitting outside in the sun about 1 o'clock eating lunch. And I owe it all to my staff. I couldn't do all the fun things I do traveling around the world without them. And you know, it's been so fun just putting this program together. I really did enjoy the research and kind of figuring out the timeline, what I did over the last 50 years. I haven't really thought about all that. And even running into people, I ran into David and Susan Hall the other day, and they said, are you going to talk about Patsy's? I said, oh, darn, I don't have a slide for that. But I think a lot of you will remember that we used to have Friday nights at my gallery. And we'd always have people brought in what they wanted to drink, and we'd put on some popcorn. And then I'd come in the morning and it smelled like a bar, and there was popcorn all over the floor, and bottles and cans to pick up. And so we decided to go down to Patsy's and have mandatory margarita night. It was on Friday night. And that just took off. It was fantastic. And Dave and Susan said, well, do you remember? Patsy used to scrub the floor every Friday because we all brought our kids. And they were dragging all over. And they were so young. Dave said, yeah, we used to change diapers on the pool table. So we had a good time reminiscing on that whole scene. In fact, one time I was so anxious to get over there, I closed up the shop and I locked a lady in that little side porch. And the poor gal was in there pounding on the window. Help, And somebody said, oh, I know where they are. They're down at Patsy's. And we had to go back and let that poor lady out. I was embarrassed. embarrassed. So I think I'm going to close with this lovely little letter, this little love letter I got from Mrs. Eccles, Lou Eccles. She's like Gary, she can rhyme things. This is beautiful. Dearest Karlyn, you're the one. Never walked when you could run. Brightest star beneath the sky. Handled clay with expert eye. Mastered all there was to know. Traveled where there was to go. Spread your wings to other arts. Travel painting was the start. Soon your painting reputation was heralded throughout the nation. Oh, what that? Ours and others, 'twas the world, where Karlyn's talent soon unfurled. But this little small town still holds your heart, Washburn, where you got your start. Yes, Washburn claims you as its own, this lakeside town that is your home. And Bayfield's sister on the bay would like to share you, if we may.